What's going on, team? Welcome back along to the channel. It's a new year, and that means one thing: a new rugby season in the Southern Hemisphere is about to begin. Super Rugby is just 1 week away from starting, and if you thought we were going to miss out on a little bit of a preview, you'd be wrong, because today we kick things off with our first of course, the three pool previews, and we're going to be looking at the South African Conference first. Now, before we get into that, a couple of things for you guys that you need to check out. Of course, like we always do, we will be running another Super Brew League this season, so make sure you go check that out, join in, and give yourself a chance to say that you can pick rugby games better than me and anyone else that joins as well. So make sure you get in the running for that yellow cap every single week. And of course, make sure you go to behindthepost.com, where we're going to have much more content coming out there as well, with some previews, match information and team information, preview stuff, and all sorts of goodies going on there as well. So go check out that as well. But today, South Africa, and we will be having a special guest coming and joining us like we always do. It's how we always do it. And today, it is going to be Brett Hartley joining us again to have a look at South Africa. Brett, welcome back along. It's been a while since the World Cup, good sir. I'd imagine you'll still be in excitement mode. You've still got the World Cup jersey on and everything. How have you been?
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. This jersey's never coming off, actually. I actually haven't taken it off since the final, so it's smelling a bit funky right now. But no, look, it's good. Last year was obviously a really great year for South African rugby. Got the cup, which is always the goal in a World Cup year, obviously. It's good. Like I was saying before, the Super Rugby sort of crept up on us with it starting in January now. So really stoked. And my Sharks have drawn the Bulls first up, so I'm already starting to sweat and really nervous for that. I haven't beaten them since 2014. So yeah, nervous for that game, but happy rugby's back.
Yep, it is. The Southern Hemisphere is about to get underway, and it's a great year too, because this is a year that we get to see all these new players. Everyone's left. All those guys have gone off to chase the money, chase the big contracts, all that sort of thing overseas. And we get this new wave of talent coming through, which in all the conferences and all the countries involved, this is a really crucial year too, because all this new guys coming through, we get to see what these guys are made of, whether they're going to cut the mustard up at that next level. And it's a great chance, I guess, too, for other teams to make a claim to that Super Rugby trophy, because no one really is invincible anymore. All these big guns are gone. So this is the year, I guess, for South Africa to step it up a bit, and they could have themselves another Super Rugby champion, or even for the Argentinian franchise, the Jaguares, it could be their chance to go one better than last season. But we're going to kick things off. Have a look at these teams. Who's left, who's joined, where they look like they're going to be crap, where they look like they're going to be great, and pick holes in them as best we can. We're going to kick things off with Brett's favourite team in the whole Super Rugby, the Bulls, like we always do. How can we pick on this team this time? Brett, they've made a lot of changes to this team, haven't they? There's a lot of little red arrows on the outer for the Bulls, isn't there?
Yeah, there sure is. And like you said, it is a post-World Cup year. And, historically, that's a year where you do get a huge exodus, especially from South Africa, where the South African rand struggles to compete with the euro, with the pound, and we've seen that especially in the Bulls, and they've had some really huge losses.
Massive names leaving this team. I mean, you could go through them all. Jeez, you'd be here for a long time. But I mean, the amazing Shock Brits. There's a guy you'd never want to see leave rugby ever. But in their pack mainly, Ludziaga, Ozzy Snyman going, Dane Vermeulen going. Who else am I going to pick on here? That's gone in the rest of the side. Andre Pollard, of course, in the back line. I'm sure you're going to bring that up. Jesse Creel, a whole host of names. You could almost pick most of your team on that. And not too much really coming in for the Bulls either. They're going to have a lot of holes to fill, aren't they? Are they going to really rely on the youth this season, or what do you find the Bulls are going to look for?
Yeah, well, I think those names you just said there, those are all World Cup winners as well. So those are some really, really top class players, and losing those guys, especially Andre Pollard, I think I'm sure we'll touch on that a bit later. That it's going to be really crucial. But I mean, you say youth, but I think the Bulls are going in the wrong direction. I mean, bringing Mornay Stain back, I don't know what they're thinking there. I guess when they found out Pollard was leaving, they sort of scrambled around looking for a fly half, and I guess Mornay Stain, he has been playing pretty alright in France over the last few years, but Super Rugby level, you don't really want to have those veterans coming back. And they have brought Mornay Stain back, which sort of contradicts the way that they're playing last year. I think Potehiman, contrary to what I said in my preview last year, actually played a pretty expansive game plan, which Handré Pollard allowed him to do. But signing Mornay Stain is sort of hindering that a bit. Historically, he's not that expansive fly half. He's sort of that grinded out, look for penalties. Great goal kicker, obviously, but goal kicking is not necessarily. It doesn't guarantee anything in Super Rugby anymore, and a lot's changed since he's left Super Rugby. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yep, you did right. I look at that number 10 jumper, and to me, you mentioned Mornay Stain coming back, but I look at a guy like Marnie Lubbock. That's I think, a guy that they really need to take control of that sort of position. He's going to be a guy that could eventually really push on to higher things. He had a few games last season. I think he looked pretty good at that level. I think he could certainly be a man who could carry on from that. The questionable thing I've got when I look through their signings, one name stands out to me. People not from New Zealand might not recognise it, but Nafi Tuatavaki, if I'm not mistaken, a former Blues player. Again, it's weird because it's a guy he's a former Crusaders player, actually. He played for North Harbour, but not for the Blues. He played for the Crusaders in New Zealand Super Rugby regardless, but never really a standout player whatsoever. It seems a bit like they're clutching at a few straws here, the poor old Bulls, after losing so many players, using all that experience, and they've struggled, I think, to find anything to really replace it with. Another name that I found interesting in this Bulls side was Josh Strauss.
Yeah.
A good player. I'm kind of keen because it's a common trend, isn't it, Super Rugby this season? There's a lot of guys from the Northern Hemisphere, like Joe Marchant in for the Blues this season as well from England, and now you've got Josh Strauss coming in from the South Sharks. It's a kind of a flip side to what we're really used to, and I guess how many players will we see from Saracens? Had to throw that in there. So who knows what the future's going to hold. But yeah, this Bulls team, what do you think they're going to have a season like? Are we going to chuck them in the cemetery already and so they could have a tough season ahead for them?
Yeah, no, definitely not. I don't think they're going to be dreadful like they have been, not last year, but a few years before last year. I found the Josh Strauss signing quite interesting. He's been a guy that's been around for ages, even before he played for Scotland. I think he was the Lions captain in the Currie Cup, when I was a little kid. So he's been around for ages, and so I found that signing quite interesting. Look, they have lost quite a bit, but they still got guys like Warwick Gallant, Roscoe Speckman, Trevor Nyakane, obviously. They got Papier, they got Berger Udendar still. So we've still got some classy players. I think Tim Agaba, their flanker's due for a breakout year. Great sevens player, and I think he's sort of been knocking the door of that next level that he's capable of. So I think I'm expecting a big year from him, especially with guys like Dwayne Vermeulen leaving and sort of a lacking forward pack at this stage from what we can see on paper. But look, I think the South African Conference is going to be. It was obviously very tight last year. Few points in it between the Sharks, Bulls, and Stormers at the very end, for sort of that second, third, fourth spot. But I think it's going to be very close, and obviously the Bulls have had a huge exodus, but I think they've still got a good core. Like you said, they've still got a good young core as well. So I'm not expecting a huge amount from them. How them sort of my overall standings sort of going to contradict what I'm saying now, but I think these standings could go either way. And another thing, I nearly forgot. In preseason, this is a huge,
Oh, no.
I have no idea what they're doing. In preseason, they're playing Cornel Hendricks, one of the worst defenders I've ever seen. Used to play for the Springboks. They're playing Cornel Hendricks at outside centre. What the hell is this guy? 13 is one of the hardest positions to defend, and they're playing him I don't understand it. So I sort of had that in bold, Hendricks at 13 with like 5 question marks following it. So nearly forgot about that. Please don't do that Super Rugby level, because you are going to get shredded, especially when you come up against a good midfield. Maybe just a preseason experiment. I hope so. Hendricks is a really good attacker, but he is absolutely useless at defense. So don't play Hendricks at 13, except if it's against the Sharks. Then you can play Hendricks. um, that's sort of my little rant over. Back to what I was saying. I think Pod Himan's a good coach. He proved to be a good coach last year. The South African Conference is going to be very tight this year, and I have the Bulls finishing at 4th overall in the South African Conference, but it could sort of get second, third. That second, third, fourth, I think is going to be really tight again.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think it's going to be another tight conference here as well. I'd picked him same position for my prediction. Big name that we haven't mentioned, though, that I expect could have a really huge year, Roscoe Speckman.
Mm-hmm.
He was pretty big last year too. So hopefully some magic and fireworks out of him again this season. We'll move on to our second side. We'll do this one alphabetically, unlike we normally do. We'll go to the Jaguares, Argentina, and I mean, a great season for them last year, wasn't it? Do they have the capabilities to continue on that this year, do you think? Is 2020 going to be the year of Argentinian rugby?
Look, I hope, for the sake of rugby in general, I'm hoping they continue in sort of the trajectory that they were on last year. Obviously, they made the final last year, played really well, played a really good brand of tough physical rugby, but at the same time had some really flashy backs that could really stun the opposition with their pace and their precision. So I'm hoping they carry on like they were. I'm sure we're talking about they've had some big stars departing them, as you do in a post-World Cup year, but not many additions. A lot of youth have brought into the team. Not really any big names, signings, but they've still got a decent core, and I expect them to have a good year again.
Yeah, well, I think we've learned from the Jaguares so far in Super Rugby. They do recognise talent really, really well. Last season, even the season before, we looked at, but last season previewing this team, and we looked at the fly halves, as you always do, it's such a pivotal position, and we looked at guys sitting there like Bonicia, and we were like, who the hell is this? I couldn't even say his name at that time, and now he's pretty much an internationally recognised player after one season. They have a good ability to recognise that talent, and what I found quite impressive about them this season is that they've actually maintained fairly well. You mentioned a few names they've lost. Santiago Botta is gone. Enrique Perotto in the front row. Those two guys, I think, are pretty good first team sort of players. Tomas Lavanini's gone, which means the yellow card counter will probably be a little bit less for the Jaguares this season. One Manuel de Guzman is also gone. Seattle Seawolves too. I found that a really interesting signing. But I think the biggest of all, Pablo Matera. That guy, I think, is one of the best back rows in world rugby on his day. Martin Landajo is also departed in number 9 jump. I think they're really well covered there, though, so that's not a huge loss for me. And, what you call Ramiro Mojano, a bit of a loss. Bringing in Carreras, I think they've got a good swap on there. So I think their squad is maintained really, really well. And I think they could continue on to be quite a devastating attacking side, which is what we've seen, which that really excites me. Guys like Buffelli. What a season he had last year. I think this team's really, really well made up. Do you see anywhere, though, that this team could be considered to have a weakness that sides can really attack? Because they can't fly under the radar now. They've done a big dash. They've made that thing to the final. So team's going to be a bit more, I think, ready for the Jaguares. But where can they target, looking at this team on paper, that you think they could be a little bit weak?
I guess you couldn't really look at this as a tactical weakness, but I think just playing them when they're away, it's something that we talk about every single year with the Jags, but it is something really, really prevalent with them is their travel. And we saw it affect their final last year. I think, obviously, the Crusaders are a class team, but I think that travel from Argentina to New Zealand in that week, it really affected them. And I don't think they played the best that they could have in that final. I'm taking nothing away from the Crusaders, absolute class team, class organization, but I think that travel really, really affected them when you see how they play at home, which is a reason why, obviously a different topic, but reason why I think there should be a week's gap between the semi-final and final to have a level playing field with seeing the home and away team. But I think just taking the opportunities against them when they're away. Easier said than done, obviously, but because they're a really hard team to beat at home. So pretty much just capitalizing when you are playing them, especially teams like Japan and Australia and places where it is a fair while away for them to travel. Just capitalizing on their sort of tiredness if there is any. They obviously do travel really well, but that's probably one of the things. And then obviously just their contingent of young players and experienced players that are starting to come into the squad again. So probably just the travel combined with inexperience might create some opportunities for some teams.
They've got an interesting start to their season, which I think is going to be quite critical for the Jaguares. First 3 rounds of the competition, they're at home.
Mm-hmm.
They play the Lions at home, they play the Hurricanes at home, and they play the Reds at home. Tough games.
Yep.
Okay, maybe not the Lions. The other 2 are tough games, but even still, I mean, we've just given away who we think is going to be the Easy Beats this season in South Africa, but still at home. And I mean, you've already talked about it a bit already, but such a different team at home than they are on the road. These are guys that really lift. I mean, we saw that semi-final last year, didn't we? That was phenomenal. That one of the great atmospheres at a Super Rugby level game that we just haven't seen anywhere else, regardless of where they are. So I'm really excited for more of that. I hope they keep that passion. I hope they keep that sort of intensity as well in the team. I think they could be one to watch in 2020. Where have we got these guys finishing up? Do you think they can repeat their actions, top South Africa, and really put this conference on notice?
I haven't got them at first, actually. I've got them at second in the conference. I think they're going to play very well at home. They'll probably drop a few games on the road just due to their travel factor. I think they're going to be a very good team. I think they are going to be a fixture in the final. And I think I can see them easily making a final again. And imagine if we get a final Argentina, if they do line up top in the conference. But I've got them finishing second in South Africa right now. There's one team that I think has had a really good off-season and that will really challenge them for that top spot. So we're good seeing the Jags and the team I've got finishing top battle it out for the season.
This is going to be interesting because I think we're thinking along the same lines. I thought I was going to be striking out a bit different on this one this season, but I think we're going on the same lines already.
So.
I agree with you. I was tossing up between this and another side, but I've gone the same, and I think we're going to do pretty much similar throughout the whole thing. So we've got Jaguares 2, Bulls 4. Let's fill in some gaps and look at the next team, which is the Lions. The poor old Lions. You know, this is such a great story to a pinnacle of disappointment, and the fall has been so substantial. It's crazy, isn't it? The Lions, a shadow of 2 seasons ago, aren't they, of what they could have been. What's gone wrong with the side? It's just such great planning, and they thought they had just conquered everything. And they thought they had it all fixed, and they didn't really look to the future at all after that. It's really gone wrong. Well, what do you think's happened here to the Lions over last season and heading into this year?
You know, it's just a classic case of not capitalizing when you have the chance. And for obviously those 3 years where they've made those back-to-back-to-back finals, they just stumbled at the last hurdle. Obviously, 2 of them were away. They lost the Hurricanes quite badly. Had a final in Joburg. The whole of South Africa was behind them. Ellis Park was sold out. Brain fart. Quagga Smith in the first half gets a red card. Was questionable whether it should have been a red card, but at the end of the day, it was. He made the infringement. And they really paid for that the rest of the final. They fought back hard in the second half, but just wasn't enough for what they lost in that first half against the Crusaders, and obviously fell again in Christchurch against the Crusaders again. And since then, obviously, Johan Ackerman left. Swiss de Vrooy did his best job, but wasn't quite that coach that Ackerman was. And then just the exodus, you know, if you look at this year, the names, Malcolm Marr, Stefan Levis, Quagga Smith, Warren Whiteley, Nick Groom, Lionel Mapu, Harold Foster, Ron Combrink, Piwa Dianti, Madosh Tumwe, Mahuza, just those names are just crazy. Obviously, we won't talk about Dianti, but you know, just the caliber of players, and obviously before that they lost guys like de Klerk because they were stuffing around playing on the bench, even though he's one of the better scrum halves in the world. Just some mismanagement, some just unlucky times, but they just didn't capitalize when they had that squad, when they had that core of players, those Springboks that they had, and you know that they paid for not capitalizing, and you know they could have won 2, if not 3, Super Rugby championships, and and yeah, they just everything was just against the Lions in those finals, and since then they just didn't recover.
One thing that stands out when you look at who they've recruited this season, we're used to seeing quite a lot, especially it's been a staple of the Lions, is that the Golden Lions contribute so much to this Lions team. So the Currie Cup side, obviously, into the Super Rugby team. We're not seeing that so much. And from a quick little look through, I think there's only two names coming through from the Lions into now the Super Rugby side this season. And probably more, I guess what we talked about earlier, of the Bulls, Yanni du Plessis. Another big old veteran head coming up. How's he still playing? You know, he's really been going on for a while. Their recruitments don't sell you with the most confidence, do they? When you look through there and those names you mentioned leaving and what they've got coming in, you just go, oh dear, there's going to be some real big holes in this team. The midfield looks like it could be a real troublesome area for them. And of course, probably what I think is going to be most interesting is a new coach, Ivan van Rooyen, coming in. Any sort of indication on what he's going to offer this Lions team with a massive change now with all the personnel, coaching staff, everything? It's like resetting the reset button, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of people sort of questioning Van Rooyen's qualifications as well. He was their strength and conditioning coach for the last few years, so it's a bit unconventional to go straight from strength and conditioning to head coach. Normally, it's sort of assistant coach to head coach, or forwards coach, or backs coach. But I guess they're going to be well conditioned because their strength and conditioning coach is their head coach, and he's a young guy, he's still got a lot to prove. Hasn't had the most experience. I think he might have coached Varsity Cup in South Africa a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. He might have a new take. I think the problem with Swiss is he sort of tried to execute what Ackerman was doing, but wasn't sort of tactically sound enough to execute it as well as Ackerman did. So it's going to be interesting to see how he goes. Obviously, I have no sort of prior knowledge of teams that he's been the head coach of or anything. So don't know what style he's going to play with. It's sort of just a big question mark, really.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I guess because that he hasn't had much pull, has he? He hasn't been able to drag guys in from a group that he's known, because looking at what he has done in the past, like you say, it's pretty Lions and Lions, so the Currie Cup and Super Rugby with various roles. He has done some time as the assistant coach, strength and conditioning coach. He's done a little bit of all that, but nothing, I guess, what most sort of teams look for now is that international experience, isn't it? They go for the guys that have been in England or been in the UK or been in France and things like that, been around the world, kind of a bit more cultured, which is something that's surprising for a head coach to not have that, and what he's going to bring to that team. Speaking of that, I wonder how he was born in 82, so that would only make him late 30s, wouldn't it, technically?
He's a young guy.
For a head coach, that is a very, very young guy. So really interesting season. I'm not picking too much going, and you look through the side, and I don't see too many names that's going to really lift this team forward. A guy at number 10, Alta Yankees, we talk about him so much. The pressure is going to be heaped on him like a snow avalanche, which is absolutely caving on him. He's going to be the one they're going to smash, and he's going to have very, very little support and experience around him as well. So I'm not too confident how you're finding the Lions this season. I think we know where fifth place is coming from.
Yeah, I agree. I think something we didn't touch on, I think, is their one good signing, I think, has been Jumbo Alango. He's been playing for the Bulls for the last few years. Quality winger, big guy. Could do well with the Lions when they're sort of lacking some of the backs they've had over the past few years. And they also signed Dan Creel, who's Jezzy Creel's brother, so possibly some potential there. He's been with the Bulls and I think the Stormers last year. So maybe possibly a future solution for their midfield. But like you said, not really expecting a huge amount from them this year. I think it's going to be a rebuilding year for them. Interesting to see how long guys like Kutsia and Yankees and whatnot stick around if this is a bad year for them. So rebuilding year, not expecting too much, and like you said, I think they're going to be the fifth spot again in the South African Conference.
Yeah, we'll be keen to see how long those guys stick around. If it is a sinking ship for the Poor old Lions, eh? What a amazing fall from grace it's been for them. Amazing over 2 years how they've fallen so mightily. Moving on though, the Sharks. Oh, this is seriously Brett's team this time. So give us an overview. Your boys, your team, the Sharks. Do you call them the most frustrating side in Super Rugby history?
We're like, I like to call us the Arsenal of Super Rugby, except we haven't actually won anything. So we're always sort of there, but we just never get over that hurdle. We've got such a long streak of being in the playoffs. I can't even remember the last time we missed the playoffs, but pretty much every single year we get to the quarterfinals, semi-finals, sometimes finals, and then we just never get over that half. We just never get over that hump, sort of like the Lions did, except we never really fell away like the Lions. The Lions sort of had this meteoric rise and then fell. We've sort of just always been there, but just haven't really done anything. Unfortunately, like memories like 2007 just haunt me. Brian Abana crossing that line in like the 80th minute or whatever it was. But look, the Sharks have also had a big sort of exodus. Obviously, the Beast, who's been a stalwart of the Shark side for over a decade now, he's gone playing in the US actually. Cunio Station's gone. Akafana Mav is gone. Chilibwe Ralapello is suspended. Ruan Borch's gone. The Dupria twins are gone. Philip van der Volt's gone. Robert Dupria, both junior and senior, are gone. Kubas van Veek has gone to the Hurricanes, and Rona Smith has gone. Really weird. That really surprised me, that signing. Especially he's hardly got any game time with the Sharks lately either. So very surprising. A lot of outs, but at the same time, the Sharks last year were one of the deeper teams in Super Rugby, and I think they can manage with that exodus.
So you're expecting a big season from no names here. You're expecting the Sharks are going to unearth a few future Springbok talents. Is that really the direction this team's going? To kind of bring the side up? I guess do what the Lions did when they actually become the team of Super Rugby. Is that the direction the Sharks are finding themselves in heading into the season?
I guess it's not necessarily even no names. I think it's just guys that have sort of built some profile already, but just giving them an opportunity. They've signed good signings, like I think Sikambuzi and Noche from the Stormers was a pretty good signing. Madash Tambo from the Lions, I think, is a very good signing. He adds some depth to the already stacked sort of winger position at the Sharks. Don't really want to touch on JP Peterson. Why? I know he played Curry Cup last year. Just why? I guess he brings some experience that losing guys like the Beast, that were sort of the experience that we lost. The signings were pretty good except from Peterson. But guys like Kerwin Bosch, who in the sort of Robert Dupria senior era were, I think, mistreated with just being benched all the time. He should have been the starting fly half last year. Obviously, the dad went for the son. Robert Dupria Jr., he's a good player, but I think Kerwin Bosch is that level above him. But sort of, I think towards the end of the season, they realised how good of a player Bosch is. But I think with Robert Dupria gone, I think Bosch is going to have his team. I think he's got the keys to the team now. I think he's going to be the consistent number 10, which is what fans have been wanting. We don't want to see him at 15 or on the wing, or we want to see him in that 10 jersey, and we think he can be a Springbok 10 one day. And I think it's a good sign that that the Duprias are gone, because he'll get that opportunity. I'm really excited to see Fussy as well in that 15 sort of Curling moving to 10 opens that 15 jersey up for Fussy, who I think is one of the got some of the biggest upside in South African rugby now. Extremely fast player, and I think he's going to be making a run for the Springbok jersey this year. So it's going to be guys like that, I think, who got that, who just getting that opportunity. And obviously we've still got guys like Lukanyam, Andre Esterhuizen, Makazola Mapimpi, Spoon Corsi, just these Springboks, these World Cup winners, and they're going to just keep building on that. And we've still got a very young core. Our stars very young still. Lukanyam just got named captain today, so excited to see what he's going to do. I never really rated Louis Schroeder as a great captain, so excited to see what Lukanyam's going to bring from a leadership perspective as well.
Yeah, it was good to see that core of those really experienced guys there. The original King of South, you already mentioned Mapimpi. They really look set, don't they, in probably their first sort of team first choice names on the team sheet, they look really, really solid and consistent as well, which I think is what you really want from your team, because you don't want too much to change, especially in your core guys that are going to take this team forward. It's a depth, really, that they've just extended on, and I guess, like you talked about it a bit already, having that depth in the last couple of seasons has done them well, because these guys are now in their second, third season with the team, starting to break their way into the starting team, or the first choice team. It's beneficial for the side as well. A couple of points finally on the Sharks. The start of their season, at home, against the Bulls, you've already mentioned that's a concerning one for a Sharks fan. But following that, they're off on the Big Bird down to pretty much my part of the world here at Forsyth Bar Stadium. I'm close to that in Dunedin. A tour of New Zealand where they face the Highlanders, and then they face the Hurricanes, where they go to Australia and face the Rebels in round 4. The start of the season is going to be crucial for the Sharks team, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it can be tough to go on tour straight away, but personally, I prefer it. I think it's easier touring, better to tour earlier and then have a nice home run towards the playoffs than tour late. And obviously, you can catch teams, like especially New Zealand teams who are normally always class. You can sort of catch them when they're a bit rusty, when they haven't quite tuned to what they are at the end of the season. So definitely a lot better to match up with those guys at their home grounds at the start of the season than towards the end.
It's amazing. They don't get home till round 6 of the competition. That is a really, really rough start to a season. And they got the bye in round 9. So that is crazy. Well, they have 3 home games. 6, 7, and 8 are at home. And then 9, they've got the bye. Finally, last point, new coach, Shane Everett. What we talked about just before, wasn't it, as well? You normally expect a coach to come through the assistants and the underage sort of things. This is exactly what this guy's done. Youth coach at the Sharks, assistant coach at the Sharks, coach of the Curry Cup Sharks, obviously, and now moving in to the Super Rugby Sharks. So many Sharks everywhere. But that's the normal process going through. Is he going to just carry on what he's done previously here? Do you think going to see a similar sort of thing from what people have seen with the Sharks in the Curry Cup coming through now to Super Rugby?
Yeah, I'm hoping so. Like you said, he's really, earned his stripes in the Sharks organization, really worked his way from the bottom, and, rightly so, he's been given a chance to coach the big side. And I think he's taken the last 2 Curry Cup campaigns and obviously won his first campaign, and then, did it right last year. Didn't win the whole thing, but, did pretty well. So, quite chuffed with him as coach. And, yeah, to be fair, I'm just happy Robert Dupria, his senior, is just out of there. He was so frustrated. He had a lot of promise with what he was trying to do, but at the end of the day, didn't really have a set game plan that he liked to stick to. Sort of was a bit, sort of 1 week he'd play expansive game plan, and then he would switch to kicking, and then it just didn't really work out. And it's never good when you have 3 sons playing for you either. So. Glad that he's out there and glad that we have some fresh blood, and excited whatever it's going to do.
So we've got 2 spots remaining, first and third. Head Sharks, Heart Sharks. Where are your Sharks going?
They're not going first. From what I've seen, I don't think we have the squad to challenge for that first spot. I think we'll be there. Like I said, I think it's going to be a close conference, so I don't see us knocking off. Obviously, it's obvious I got the Stormers as first. I don't see them contending with that Stormers squad yet. Hopefully, I get proven wrong. I think our forwards are a point of worry for me. With what we've lost to what we've gained, I don't think we have as good of a pack as we had last year. Obviously, we still got guys like Thomas Dutoy, but losing guys like the Beast and Cuneo Stays and whatnot, a bit worrying. The hookers are especially worrying for me. Obviously, losing Akafandamava, Chili Boy getting suspended. So you got guys like Craig Burden, who's been at the Sharks for years and years, and you got some youth there as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the pack. I'm a bit worried about it. Hopefully we can unearth some young stars, which is what this sort of early phase of the 4-year World Cup cycle is about, unearthing new talents and whatnot. So a bit worried right now on paper about our scrum and whatnot, but hopefully I'm proven wrong. But yeah, I've got us finishing third.
Right, let's go on to this team. we've gone the same direction here, so I won't even give my pick, but we've gone exactly the same, mixing up completely. We've both got the Stormers to top the South African Conference this season. I mean, this team does look mighty fine on paper, does it? It looks really good. I mean, you just need to look at what they could offer in their front row. When they've still got Stephen Kitzel, Franz Maholba, and Bongi and Manabi in there, that is world-class, your front row straight away. The guys, Peter Steph Toy still in that squad, Khaleesi. It's a great pack. It really is top-class quality in this team. The Golden Boy, Herschel Yankees is still there. Jean-Luc Duplessis, Damien Willems is still there. I mean, they've got such quality about this whole team throughout. It just looks exciting, doesn't it, the Stormers side? They look like they are going to be reaching that pinnacle that we've struggled to see them reach in the last few years.
Yeah, and for the last sort of the 2010s decade, I guess they knocked on the door a few times and sort of fell short, but I think they're looking good this year. Obviously, they've lost guys like Evan Etzebeth, Damien Delinde, JJ Engelbrett, SP Moret, but those are obviously big losses, but like you said, I think it's more what they've retained, and they've retained a really good group of players. I think they've got the best stock of props, probably in Super Rugby. Guys like Kitsoff, Vilko Lowe, Franz Maherba, and obviously guys like Bongi Manambi. So that front row as well. It's a formidable front row, and they've got a lot of depth there. Obviously, Robbie Fleck, the coach, is also gone, which a lot of Stormers fans are rejoicing about. Interesting to see how they go under a new coach. And like you said, just the guys they've retained. Their harsh combination of Yankees and Willems, assuming Willems gets a 10 jersey. Obviously, there's Duplessis there as well. They've retained just a whole lot in a year after a World Cup where there's normally a huge exodus. They've managed to keep their squad pretty intact, and I'm sure we'll talk about Jamie Robertson a bit as well. They got some interesting inclusions there. Good to see Leland Zuss back. Zuss didn't really get a huge opportunity at the Sharks, not what I really expected from him. So sort of homecoming for him and hopefully get some game time at the Stormers this season.
Yes, that was my next point. You spoke a bit about the coach. Much like we just talked about with the Sharks, another guy's come through Western Province with the Curry Cup. He's done it the proper way, it almost seems like, and that's what it really you're used to seeing as well. So it's a bit surprising we haven't seen that all the way through. I mean, let's talk about it. The chin in the room, as you may call it. Jamie Roberts, in from Bath. What have you made of this? It's cool. This excites me because we always talk about, why don't we have a Super Rugby champion versus a Premiership champion and la. This is cool because you get to see what these guys, how they can adapt and adjust to playing in the Southern Hemisphere game and vice versa. I see we get a lot of Southern Hemisphere players obviously go north. That's pretty common. We see it all the time. But to get these Northerns come to South is very interesting, isn't it? It's intriguing to see how they adapt.
Yeah, for sure. Now, obviously, Jamie Roberts is a class player, Welsh legend, rugby legend in general, world rugby legend. Interesting to see him move to South during this stage of his career. Would have been a lot better to see him made this move maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when he was sort of still in his prime. I'm not really saying he's been put out to pasture yet, but he's getting up there. He's been around for a while. I think he was a Lion during the 2009 tour to South Africa, and obviously he's making a bid for that next tour, which is, I think, the reason for this move. He wants to buy more times in the Lions, show Warren Gatlin how he does against Southern Hemisphere opposition, specifically other South African teams. So I think that was one of the big reasons behind this move. Definitely wouldn't be for money. So, yeah, I think it shocked a lot of us. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Class player. I would have loved to see a midfield with him and Delinde, but obviously Delinde is not there. So, it'll be interesting. He brings a lot of experience. Defensively, he's very sound. And, I think it's an interesting pickup. And if it works, the Stormers are going to look pretty smart.
Imagine that. You wouldn't want to be a winger in that team, would you? Delinde and Jamie Roberts side by side midfield. It's like you just stay out there and try and keep warm, wouldn't you? Get a blanket or something. Oh, goodness gracious me. Yeah, I'm really keen to see how it goes. I talked about it earlier. The guys you got coming through, there's a number of them this season. Old guys, young guys. I mean, Jamie Roberts is only 33. He's not completely, he's not Sonny Bill Williamsing it or whatever, over with the late 30s sort of job. So, or Dan Carter for that matter. It's great to see that sort of thing coming through. I just really like the look of this team. I think they've got strengths all around the place. Great depth of players, great experience, and great youth as well, and talent for South Africa that they want to see coming through the grades as well. So it's kind of got everything for me. I think the Stormers have promised this quite a bit over the last couple of years, but they've often suffered quite poor consistency. And the ability to travel has really, really cost them as well in the last previous season. So I'm looking to see them start really, really well. They have a tough start against the Hurricanes, but it's at home, which is going to be, again, key for them if they can start well. Hurricanes, Bulls, and then where do they go? They're on the road to the Lions. So they could get a nice little start here before they face the Jaguares in round 4. So it could all start here for them. If they keep that early season form up, they could be on to something. Obviously, you've got them finishing top in your pool. Any last little remarks here? Where do you think? Do you think they're going to get the consistency? Probably is what my big thing is from what previous teams have, that they just can't seem to adapt to the overseas conditions. How are they going to fix that? I think that's their biggest issue.
Yeah, they've. I don't know how many times we've spoken about on this channel. The travel of the Stormers, and you're quite right. I think that should be priority number one for them is learn how to travel, and hopefully they've brought in the right coaching staff, bring in the right experts, because you can get travel down to a science. And a lot of teams in world sport have got travel down to that particular science, and it's just all about routine, structure, making sure players get enough rest, trying to get players on a comfortable flight, even when you go into places like Argentina and whatnot. But I think in terms of Stormers, I think all the cards are just falling in the right place for them. I think they've got the best player in World Rugby, in my opinion, Peter Steph du Toit, obviously World Rugby Player of the Year, great World Cup, just an awesome player. I think one of the highest work rates in World Rugby. They got that new coach coming in, some fresh blood there. And at the same time, it's the last season at Newlands, so historic rugby ground, historic World Rugby ground. Last season, obviously, they moved into the Cape Town Stadium now after the season. So a lot of the players, Sia Khaleesi did an interview a few days ago where he spoke about the drive for the Stormers to do well this season, to give Newlands the farewell it deserves, so Newlands could see a Super Rugby title. And I think that's a motivation that the players are probably speaking about on a daily basis. Farewell in that historic ground in the right way, and which is what Sia Khaleesi was sort of stressing in the interview, that it's a big motivation for them this year. So I think all the cards are falling in the right place for them, and it's interesting to see how Dobson goes as their head coach. Not really familiar with him, but if they can get that travel right, I think they could do very well and go very far in this competition.
Well, there we have it. That is our 5 South African conference teams. We've got the Stormers coming 1, we've got the Jaguares 2, we've got the Sharks 3, Bulls 4, and the... I was trying to think of a really good L word to describe the Lions. The lonesome Lions. Lonely Lions. I like that. Down the bottom. Poor old Lions. Gotta feel sorry for them. That is what we've picked up for our top 5 for the South African Conference in Super Rugby in 2020. New decade, new season, but a lot of the same old stories with these teams. A big thanks to Brett for coming on and sharing his thoughts on the conference this year. Yet again, I mean, how many years have we doing this, Brent? Too many, don't remind me.
Four in a row?
Does it? Don't remind me. If you want to abuse them about the Lions, I guess, any Lions fans out there, or the Bulls like we normally do, where can people get a hold, have a chat, get your thoughts on a regular basis?
Just at Twitter, at Brett Hartley 390. It's been pretty dormant the last few months, but looking to get back into it with all this new juicy rugby season, new rugby games in front of us. Obviously, the test season's looming as well. So, at Brett Hartley 390, abuse me in the comments or on Twitter or whatever. I normally get, these are the only videos I normally get flack for. So, looking forward to reading these comments. Be nice. No, it's been good. Thanks for having me again. And another year, another Super Rugby preview.
Awesome. And of course, his Twitter handle will be under his face, as it always is, like mine. Speaking of dormant, the website has been dormant for mine, but previews for each round will be coming up, as well as videos, as well as the Australian Conference preview, which will be coming up next. And we'll do the New Zealand Conference as well. So you'll be all fit and ready to go for the new season next weekend, essentially. So big thanks to everyone tuning in. Big thanks to Brett, as for always. And we might see you for some round reviews in a week or 2 or 3 or 4 times. So big thanks, everyone. We'll see you for it. Until then, take care.